Once upon a time, in a small village nestled between two hills, there was an unusual rule: no one was allowed to pound anything at night. This rule had been in place for generations, and no one dared to break it. The villagers had many reasons to pound things during the day. They pounded yam for food, pounded spices for cooking, and sometimes even pounded tools to fix their homes. But once the sun set, all pounding stopped. No one knew exactly why the rule existed. Some said it was to let people rest in peace after a hard day of work. Others whispered that it had something to do with spirits that roamed the village at night. The elders never explained the rule in detail, but their serious faces warned against questioning it. In this village lived a young boy named Kofi. Kofi was curious by nature, always asking questions and exploring the forest around the village. He loved to listen to stories, but he often wondered why no one talked much about the no pounding rule. One evening, Kofi sat with his grandmother by the fire. "Grandma," he asked, "why can't we pound things at night?" His grandmother looked at him with tired eyes. "Some things are better left alone, my child," she said. "The spirits don't like the sound of pounding. It wakes them up, and they don't forgive easily." "But what if we don't believe in spirits?" Kofi asked. His grandmother sighed. "Belief doesn't matter, Kofi. Rules are rules." Kofi nodded, but the curiosity inside him grew stronger. One moonlit night, when everyone in the village was asleep, Kofi decided to find out what would happen if someone pounded at night. He crept into the kitchen, where his mother's mortar and pestle were kept. He picked up some dried yams and placed them in the mortar. His heart raced as he lifted the pestle. For a moment, he hesitated. But then he thought, what's the worst that could happen? With a swift motion, he pounded the yam. The sound echoed through the quiet village. It was louder than he had imagined, as if the whole world had heard it. Suddenly, the air around him grew cold. The flickering light of the lantern dimmed, and a chilling wind blew through the open window. Kofi froze, his hand gripping the pestle. Then, he heard it, a low, rumbling sound, like distant thunder. It came closer and closer until it felt as if the earth itself was groaning. Before Kofi could move, a shadowy figure appeared in the room. It was tall and thin, with glowing red eyes that pierced the darkness. The figure didn't speak, but Kofi felt its anger. "You have broken the rule," a deep voice echoed in his mind. "The spirits are awake." Kofi dropped the pestle and fell to his knees. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disturb you," he cried. The figure pointed toward the door. "You must pay the price," it said. Kofi scrambled to his feet and ran outside. To his horror, the entire village was shrouded in a thick mist. Shadows moved within the mist, whispering in languages he couldn't understand. The pounding sound he had made now echoed endlessly, growing louder and louder. Kofi ran to his grandmother's house and shook her awake. "Grandma, help me," he begged. "I broke the rule." His grandmother's eyes widened, but she didn't scold him. Instead, she grabbed a small bag of herbs and led him to the village square. There, she lit a fire and began chanting an ancient song. The mist swirled around them, and the shadows drew closer. Kofi's grandmother threw the herbs into the fire, and the air filled with a sweet, calming scent. "Spirit of the night," she called out, "forgive this child. He is young and foolish, but he has learned his lesson." The shadows paused. Slowly, the mist began to fade, and the pounding echo grew quieter until it disappeared. The shadowy figure appeared one last time. It looked at Kofi and then at his grandmother. "The rule must never be broken again," it said before vanishing into the night. From that night on, Kofi never questioned the rule again. He told his friends about his terrifying experience, and they all agreed that some rules are best left unbroken. The villagers continued to live in peace, and the pounding stopped every evening as the sun dipped below the hills. The story of Kofi's mistake was passed down for generations, a reminder that some traditions are not meant to be challenged. And so, the village remained a place where the nights were quiet, and the spirits were undisturbed.